This is the story of my craziest trip ever. On July 5th, 2019, I bought a bike from a guy named Carl. My aspirations dangerously approached Don Quixote levels, and so I chose to name the bike Rocinante. Rocinante and I arrived to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on the morning of July 28th, where we would head on a painstakingly designed loop. Scranton, Williamsport, State College, Erie, Pittsburgh, Gettysburg, and all the way back to Philly for a 15-day, 1,200-mile bike ride. Was I prepared? Not quite, but a random voice on the other line helped.
Doing it is probably the easiest part, but landing yourself at the end of the day in the right spot or a safe spot, that is the hardest part. It really is, and knowing when to stop and when to push it and try and make it to your next destination and running out of light. When it stops becoming fun, then it's not worth it. You really won't enjoy it.
If I was creative and somewhat successful, this is the part of the video where I transition into today's sponsor. Instead, I want to explain the organization I was benefiting during my tour, Child USA. They're a nonprofit based in Philadelphia who battle child abuse and neglect through policy and research. But most importantly, they've got a lot of graphs. A multitude of friends reached out to me offering to host me throughout the trip, and I would supplement whatever nights without a host by sleeping in my hammock. Anyway, I left Philly and headed north about 115 miles until reaching my kind and sandy friend Ben in Stroudsburg. About 100 miles in, though, I crossed over the Appalachian Trail and briefly considered totally just changing the trip into a hiking adventure. But then,
Never mind.
We left that morning and I traveled over the Poconos until another friend Molly joined me for the descent into Scranton. As we ate, we were ambushed by a news crew who sadistically recorded as I experienced my one and only tumble on the wet sidewalk slats of downtown Scranton.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus.
'Tis but a scratch.
And after watching ourselves in the 5 o'clock news with their turtle, we celebrated Molly's birthday.
Happy birthday, dear Molly.
And lit up the streets of Scranton. Heading west, I dropped Molly off in Wilkes-Barre and cycled to my friend Ryan near Williamsport. It rained a lot, and he didn't bring a helmet, but who cares, because we found the Little League World Series.
Hi guys, well, we've made it to a town that's not yet the destination, so it's not really too much of a milestone, but I needed to eat some chickpeas real quick. That's all. Ryan's here. He doesn't have a helmet nor a rain jacket, but he came from his house knowing it was going to rain and he would need to be biking.
Stupid me planned the whole route on roads like Hill Alley, Summit Drive, and Mountain Ave. But hey now, girl, my thighs are thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. Apparently Williamsport was going through some gang violence, so I yeeted on out to Penn State University. My favorite little running trail on the way, called Fisherman's Paradise, turned out to be one of my least favorite biking trails, but Rocinante and I rolled up to my apartment with a lot of anticipation for day 5. After having recruited a gang of my own, comprised of 2 Matts, 1 William, and an Andrew, we headed into the mists of central PA. About halfway, we paused for lunch in Renovo, where about 10 people, or half of the population, came to gawk at our bikes. 1 flat tire and many vistas later, we finally made it to Pennsylvania's gateway to the stars, Cherry Springs State Park. Bailey met us there and took us to the most incredible dinner of my life in this tavern/gallery in Cootersport with our new, slightly problematic friends, Rob, John, Steve, and Alan. We drove back to the park in the dead of night to set up our tent, and soon we peacefully fell asleep beneath a grand view of the Milky Way. Oh crap. My spokes are broken and my knee is screaming. Okay, let's just go back to Penn State and reevaluate. Some many hours later, I had to make the decision to drastically edit the route. I headed south and east towards Huntington. William rode with me halfway and Austin camped with me that night. The next morning, I stopped to use the restroom in Mount Union, but I got a flat from this tall curb that had damaged Austin's bumper just the night before. Lost time aside, I crawled up these 2 mountains separating me from reaching Carlisle, against the better judgment of my still aching knee. I should add that Rocinante loved the education he was able to receive at the various schools we found along the way. Justin hosted me in Carlisle, where I ate about 2 pounds of chickpeas until I departed again for Lancaster. I got to visit Justin's stepmom, Deb, at work, and passed through the state capitol before reaching my friends, the Fishers, in Hummelstown. A few rounds of wood chips later, I made it to Matt and Joanna's house in Leola. Because Lancaster County is just a cover-up name for one big cornfield, our dinner came straight from their garden. The next morning, I raced against many horse and buggies through the crudely named Amish towns of Intercourse, Blue Ball, and Bird in the Hand, Pennsylvania. Yep, they're real. There were a lot of things in my way this day, but eventually Rocinante and I arrived in Downingtown. After some pelicans, water ice, and cheap Chinese food, I was approached by this quirky old man named Craig, who was just about to leaf blow a local gazebo for fun, and in between spurts of leaf blowing, he'd tell me all about his granddaughter with massive quads or smart Villanova classmate who almost invented perpetual motion. I have his phone number and we send each other puzzles now. I ate dinner with my friends Dom and Steven in Westchester that night, where we decided to sign up for a 1-mile race in Henderson 2 nights later. Tomorrow was the big day, though. I planned on biking all the way into Philly and ending my tour. I found my way onto the Schuylkill River Trail, only miles away from reaching the rocky steps at the art museum, and I was beginning to cry with a lot of anticipation. I'd come so far and experienced just so much, and then I made it. But little did I know that I still had about 40 miles left in my trip. Whoops. Oh my god. I was on my way here on the Schuylkill River Trail, and I was like tearing up. Oh God. Should I stop by Child USA, their office? Maybe. Andrew and I made plans to eat lunch in Philadelphia. Afterwards, I called the office of Child USA to try and see if they'd be willing to let me visit and thank them for all of the hard work that they do. Somehow they knew who I was and about my trip, and said they were happy to have me come. Knowing that they had security in their building, I decided to throw out my steak knife in a public trash can and head over to their office. There, I learned a lot about their mission and was able to share my appreciation for all that they do. I was just utterly starstruck. This was the most rewarding aspect of the whole trip. And what happened next? Well, I planned on taking the train home with Andrew at 6 p.m. to Westchester so he could drive me back to my house in Collegeville, and in the meantime I visited a CPR/AED training course in the middle of 30th Street Station, followed by taking an oath with an intimidating man in the bathroom to let Jesus into my heart. But then a lot of bad weather came through and canceled our train, so we waited for hours at the station until Andrew's brother could come pick us up, and that's what I had vegan Taco Bell for the first time. It was good. But then we got picked up and arrived back super late, so I stayed another night in Westchester. Then I biked myself all the way through Valley Forge and Perkiomen Valley the next day before arriving back at my house for good. But then I remembered, oh my god, I have to go back to Westchester anyway tonight to run the Henderson Mile that I signed up for. So I returned just hours later to drop a dirty 450 mile and later drink Shirley Temples with my high school coach and a bunch of elite runners in the hotel bar that night. So what did I learn and what did I accomplish? My trip totaled 770 miles, surpassing its fundraising goal of about $2,000 raised over 12 days. Obviously, I had to show patience with each day, and deciding to shorten my route in the middle taught me about humility and honesty. It allowed me to enjoy my trip rather than complete the arbitrary goals I had set for myself in the beginning. Beating Child USA gave me a lot of perspective and respect for those advocates. But most of all, I learned about the power of kindness. It took an ensemble of small gestures and host families and sendy friends to get me through that trip, which is why I don't even feel right calling it mine. Thank you to everyone who hosted me, cooked my meals, dressed my wounds, gave my cause a platform, rode with me, encouraged me throughout, and donated to Child USA. But I've been glossing over one detail. Why the heck did I do this trip? I'd always wanted to go on a crazy big trip, but it was the impact I knew I could have on child abuse that motivated me to plan and complete it. It's a subject that's very personal to me for a lot of reasons, as many of my friends and I have had to overcome some awful childhood experiences. I wanted to use my tour as a symbol of strength moving beyond abuse, and represent the power of how much a community can accomplish. Unfortunately, not enough people intervene, even when they recognize that a child is being abused, which is probably the worst thing you could do for that child. Abuse has lasting impacts on children as they become adults, and I'm lucky to have a firm grasp on what has happened to me and not blame myself for it. So I plan to use my time and perspective to continue to educate people about child abuse, as well as support Child USA's initiatives. If you're curious about Child USA, you can visit their website, childusa.org. Please consider making a donation to benefit their very common sense initiatives. What am I about to do?